My dad made me clean the house with a toothbrush at 12. When I refused at 18, he threw me out. Now he wants my help after I became rich. I was 12 when my father handed me the old red toothbrush and pointed at the kitchen floor. Not because the floor was stained with filth that required a tool that small, and not because we lacked cleaning supplies. The mop stood in the hallway closet, clean and unused, just a few feet away. This was never about hygiene. It was about control, about humiliation, about making sure I knew exactly how little I was worth in his eyes. He leaned in the doorway, arms crossed, his face a permanent scowl even when he wasn't speaking. "Get the corners. Grime hides there," he muttered, as if the act of scraping out invisible dirt with a toothbrush somehow shaped character. I remember pressing the bristles into the grout, scraping with numb fingers while outside, through the cracked glass of the kitchen window, my friends rode past on bikes. Laughter floated in the air like smoke, a sound that didn't belong to me anymore. My days were like that. Minutes measured by the rhythm of bristles dragging over tile, the ache in my knees, and the shadow of a man who watched with the cold detachment of a prison warden. Chores weren't about helping or learning responsibility. They were sentences, handed out for infractions like speaking too loudly, or getting a B on a math quiz, or simply breathing in a way that annoyed him. I learned early on not to ask why. The rules changed by the hour. What earned a silent nod on Monday earned a backhand by Wednesday. There was never an apology, never a moment of remorse, only silence, punishment, and the slow erosion of any softness I might have had. By the time I was 16, my life outside that house was as minimal as he could keep it. Part-time jobs were denied, sleepovers forbidden, and my phone was a flip model with no internet. He didn't believe a kid like me needed friends or distractions. He reminded me often that everything I had, even my breath, was because of him. "You eat because I let you. Don't forget that," he told me once when I tried to skip dinner just to keep from sitting at the same table as him. My refusal earned me 3 days with no food. My stomach cramped for a week afterward, but he walked past me like I wasn't even there. I never told my teachers, never confided in a counselor. Not because I didn't want to, but because he'd always made it clear that secrets kept the family from being embarrassed. And when your home is a minefield, the last thing you want is to give the person holding the detonator a reason to drop it. 18 was supposed to be my escape. I had plans, small ones, but real. I'd saved what little I could from cash tucked away during school lunches and birthday cards from people he'd long since pushed out of our lives. When I said the words, just 4 of them, spoken on a humid afternoon in June, they set the fire. "I'm not doing it." That was all. 4 syllables. No yelling. No rage. Just a refusal. Said quietly. When he told me to scrub the bathroom walls before I left for a summer job interview I hadn't told him about, he didn't shout back. He didn't hit me that day. He just walked to my bedroom, took the trash bags from the kitchen, and began stuffing them with my clothes. No fold, no care. Just fistfuls of fabric and fury. When I tried to stop him, he shoved me out of the room. By the time I got back in, my life was on the porch. 3 bags, 1 torn, shoes thrown like garbage. "You'll come crawling back," he said. His voice didn't rise. He said it like a fact, like he was reading tomorrow's weather. "You're nothing without me." I didn't respond. I picked up the bags, slung them over my shoulder, and walked. My feet ached before I reached the bus station. I had $58 in cash and nowhere to sleep. But I never went back. I worked. Not glamorous jobs. Not jobs that you write about in inspiration blogs. I flipped burgers, cleaned hotel rooms, stocked shelves on night shifts, answered phones for people who screamed when their fast food orders were wrong. I saved every cent that didn't go toward rent or food. I enrolled in night classes and fell asleep on library desks. I learned how to fix old computers because it meant I could work on mine without paying someone else. I built slowly, bit by bit, from cracked tile and stripped dignity to a world where my name finally mattered. I didn't chase wealth, but it found me when I found something I was good at. Coding, automation, systems that saved people time and made companies money. I took risks, failed a dozen times, but I learned from every crash. And eventually, I didn't just climb, I soared. By 27, I owned 3 companies and had more in the bank than I ever thought I'd see in a lifetime. I moved into a high-rise suite with a view of the skyline, walls of glass, and silence that felt like a warm blanket instead of a trap. I bought furniture I wasn't afraid to sit on, clothes that didn't feel borrowed from someone else's life. I didn't throw parties or flaunt what I had. I just lived, finally, without the weight of his voice in my ears. And then, last week, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. The voice wasn't. "Hey," he said, after a pause too long for comfort. His voice had changed, softer, like someone who hadn't spoken in days and wasn't sure how anymore. "It's me." I didn't hang up. I didn't speak. I heard you've done well for yourself." Still, I waited. "I'm going through a bit of a rough patch," he said. "Lost the house, medical bills. I just thought maybe we could talk. Maybe you could help. We're still blood, right?" That word hung in the air like rot. Blood. I remembered that bathroom floor, the toothbrush. My knees swollen, fingers bleeding, and him sipping coffee while I scrubbed mildew he pretended he couldn't see. So I asked him one thing, calm, flat, no anger, just a question. "Do you still have that toothbrush?" There was silence, the kind that stretches so long it becomes a statement. "I don't know what you mean," he said finally. But he did. He knew, because people like him always know. And I didn't yell, didn't curse, didn't say a single cruel thing. I hung up, and I sat there, the city lights flickering through the glass like stars had come down to rest around me. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just stared. Because respect doesn't come from blood. It comes from how you treat people when you think they have nothing to offer. He taught me that, even if he never meant to. 2 days passed after the call before I saw him again. I hadn't expected to see him at all. I'd assumed that one clipped conversation, that thin voice crawling over years of silence, would be the end of it. He sounded weak, maybe sick, but still carried the same undertone of assumption, that I owed him something because he was the one who used to sign the permission slips and pour the cereal. But that wasn't parenting. That was maintenance, and barely that. I was sitting in my office on the 32nd floor, half listening to a pitch from my junior team, when security pinged my assistant. She passed me a note without a word. My eyes hit the paper, and every syllable tightened the skin on my spine. "Your father is downstairs. Says it's urgent." No title, no Mr. Bennett, just "your father," as if that word still meant something real. I closed the folder, told the team to reschedule, and walked out without explaining. I rode the elevator down without checking my reflection, without adjusting my collar, without slowing my breath. The doors opened, and I saw him slumped in one of the lobby chairs, hunched forward, hat clutched in both hands like a preacher who just confessed something terrible. He looked smaller. That was the first thing I noticed. He wasn't that towering force I remembered from the doorway shadows of my childhood. His back curled now, shoulders sagged inward, and his cheeks had sunk into that hollow look of people who stopped eating well because they couldn't afford to. His clothes were wrinkled and too thin for the weather, his shoes old and scuffed like he'd walked a long way just to avoid paying bus fare. When he saw me, he stood quickly, then hesitated, as though remembering he wasn't sure what kind of welcome to expect. I didn't greet him. I gestured to the side exit. I wasn't bringing him upstairs, not into my space, not where my name was on the walls and the air didn't reek of past regrets. We walked outside into the cool wind. Neither of us spoke as I led him to the alley behind the building, a quiet place where construction workers smoked and no one asked questions. When I stopped, he looked at me like he was still searching for the version of me that had once flinched under his glare. He wouldn't find him. That kid had gone out the door the night he tossed me into the dark with 3 garbage bags and a warning. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "Why are you really here?" "I need help," he said, not even pretending to hide it. "Money, mostly. But not just that. I've been sick, and I got no one." "You had people," I said. "You just broke them until they stopped coming around." He rubbed his neck, stared at the ground like the dirt might give him a better answer than I would. "You turned 18 and vanished," he said, like I'd left him, like I'd abandoned the family that existed only on paper. "No. You threw me out, remember?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. My silence had always said more to him than any shouting ever could. "You were disrespectful," he muttered. I refused to clean your bathroom after you pissed on the floor and told me I deserved it. He winced at that, maybe from the memory, maybe from the clarity. I was angry, he said. No, you were always angry. That day I just stopped being afraid of it. He looked older now than he had 5 minutes ago. The weight of his choices crept into the creases on his forehead. I was raised hard too, he said, grasping for context, reaching for sympathy. My father used to... Don't give me the cycle speech, I said, shaking my head. You knew what it felt like, and you chose to pass it on instead of stopping it. He didn't answer. A passing truck roared behind us, breaking the silence before it became unbearable. He looked back toward the lobby entrance like it might invite him in if he stared long enough. I'm not here to argue, he said eventually. I just need a place to stay for a while, till I figure some things out. I didn't nod. I didn't reject him outright. I just let the question hang there, unanswered. His face cracked a little under the quiet. I'm not asking for much, just enough to get my feet under me. I wanted to laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. That same tone he used when he told me he didn't hit me hard, when he said the punishments were for my own good. The manipulation hadn't evolved. It had just softened. You remember the toothbrush? I asked him again. His lips tightened. He swallowed hard. I was trying to teach you discipline. You were trying to control me, and when that stopped working, you discarded me like furniture you didn't need. I was wrong, he said. Just like that. Not a long confession, not some sob story. Just 3 words that sounded like someone else had written them for him. But even that didn't land the way he thought it might. It was too late for those words to matter. He didn't understand that apologies don't erase footprints. They just highlight where the damage is buried. You made your choices, I told him, keeping my hands in my coat pockets, eyes steady. Now you're here because those choices finally caught up. I thought you were better than this, he muttered. There it is, I said. Still trying to shame your way into something. Still pretending like I owe you forgiveness. He stood straighter then, trying to reclaim an ounce of dignity. But even he knew it was gone. I gave you life, and you tried to make me hate living it. He stepped back. Not far. Just enough to make it clear that this conversation was done. Look, he said, trying one last time. I don't have anywhere else to go. I'm not asking to live in your penthouse. Just a couch, a room, even alone. I gave him a long look, and for a second, I wondered what 12-year-old me would have done. Probably broken, probably caved, but I wasn't that version anymore. I can write you a check, I said finally. But not because I forgive you, not because we're family. I'll write it so you stop coming back. So you never call me again. He blinked. His eyes were glassy now. That's all I'm worth to you? No, I said. That's more than you ever gave me. He nodded, slow and bitter. I should have known. You should have done better, I replied. He didn't argue. He turned, walked down the street without looking back. Each step felt like a curtain closing on a stage that had never deserved an audience. I didn't follow. I walked back into the building, back into the life I'd constructed brick by brick from every insult he thought would break me. My assistant didn't ask questions. She just passed me another folder. Work resumed, clients called, deals moved. The world didn't stop because a ghost came asking for a favor. Later that night, I wired $5,000 to an anonymous shelter fund under his name. Not out of guilt, not out of pity, just to be sure he had somewhere to sleep. Because I refused to be like him. Even if I didn't want him in my life, I wouldn't leave him to rot. That was the difference. I stood at my window for a long time after that, staring down at the blinking lights and endless traffic, wondering how many other sons were out there, raised on discipline, twisted into abuse, left to rebuild with nothing but memory and rage. Maybe one day I'd write it all down. Not to vent, not to accuse, just to remind people that survival isn't the same as forgiveness. Some wounds scab over, others never close, and some people only come looking when the fire they set finally burns their own house down. 3 weeks passed. No calls, no messages, not even a thank you for the money I sent. I didn't expect one. That wasn't why I did it. He'd taken enough from me already. Time, peace, years of youth soaked in silence and commands. But I wouldn't let him take my decency. I'd help him survive, but I wasn't rebuilding bridges he burned just to keep himself warm. I didn't think I'd see him again. But on the first Saturday in March around noon, my phone buzzed. The number didn't come up this time. It was the director of a low-income hospice downtown. His voice was calm, careful, like someone used to breaking news gently. "Your father listed you as his emergency contact," he said. "He's here. End-stage renal failure. No family listed. No insurance. We've done what we can." I didn't answer right away. The silence on my end probably made him think I'd hung up. But I stayed on the line, eyes focused on the skyline, thoughts racing through 20 years I thought I'd buried. "He won't last long," the man added. "How long?" I asked. "Days, maybe one. It's progressing quickly." I ended the call with a nod he couldn't see. 2 hours later, I walked into a quiet facility near the edge of the city. No lobby fanfare, no glass elevators or polished tile, just a front desk that smelled of bleach and old books, and a nurse who showed me to the end of the hall without asking questions. His room was small, bare walls, a window that faced a brick building. He lay on the bed, thinner than before, tubes snaking out from beneath the sheet, eyes sunken, lips dry and cracked. The air was heavy with the weight of someone fading. He didn't look like the man who used to slam doors and curse at shadows. He looked like someone near the end who had finally realized no one was coming back. He turned his head slightly, saw me. "You came?" he said, voice rasping like sandpaper against stone. I didn't speak yet. I stepped inside, pulled a chair from the corner, and sat across from him, close enough to hear his breath struggle in and out. "I wasn't sure you would," he whispered. "I didn't come for you," I replied. "I came to finish something." He nodded slowly. His neck barely moved. I figured. We sat like that for a while. No sounds except the beeping from the machines and the faint wind pushing against the windows. "I messed it up," he said. "All of it. I didn't know how to be anything other than what I knew." "I'm not here for excuses," I said calmly. "I've spent enough time living in the ruins you built. I thought being hard would make you strong," he continued, eyes now closed. "I thought if I broke you early, the world wouldn't get the chance." "But you didn't break me," I said. "You tried, but I'm still here. Stronger than you ever were." His face twitched. Something like a smile tried to form but failed halfway through. "I watched from afar," he said after a pause. "When you started making a name. I told myself I was proud, but I didn't reach out. I didn't think you'd even pick up." "I wouldn't have," I said. "Not until you needed something." He didn't argue. That told me more than words could. "I don't want to die with nothing," he said. "Not just money. I mean memory, legacy. I want someone to remember me." "You'll be remembered," I replied. "Just not the way you hoped." He didn't look surprised. "I was cruel," he said after a long breath. "I thought control was love. I thought fear meant respect. It doesn't," I said. "And if you understood that now, you wouldn't be dying alone in a room with peeling paint." He coughed, weak and dry. Then he turned his head again, and he looked at me like I was the adult in the room, like he finally understood what it meant to lose everything you thought you could keep by force. "I'm sorry," he said, voice barely above a whisper. The words floated in the air, then fell, useless and weightless. They didn't move anything inside me. "I don't forgive you," I replied, tone flat. "But I don't hate you either." His eyes watered. Not from emotion, his body was failing. Tears came because it couldn't control itself anymore. "I just want peace," he said. "Then stop trying to rewrite the past," I said. "Accept it. Let it die with you." He closed his eyes again. A sigh slipped out. His chest barely moved. I stood up, looked around the room one last time. "I'll pay for the arrangements," I said before leaving. "But I won't be at the funeral." He didn't respond. By the time I walked out of the facility, the sun was dipping behind a curtain of gray clouds. The wind had picked up. The world outside kept moving, same as always. 2 days later, I got the call. He passed at 4:07 in the morning. No struggle, no pain, they said. Just a final exhale and nothing after. I arranged the cremation, kept it simple, requested no service, no obituary, no name plaque. There was no one left to mourn him, not truly. I let the ashes be scattered quietly in a city garden he'd never visited. There was no closure, just completion. I didn't cry. I didn't drink to his memory. I didn't curse the air. I got back to work the next day, signed a new contract, met with a venture team, laughed with colleagues. I didn't speak of him again. Later that year, I donated to a shelter for displaced teens. I didn't attach my name, just wrote a note to the director. For the ones who got thrown out but kept walking. I never married, never had kids. Maybe I was afraid I'd carry something I didn't know how to bury, or maybe I just never wanted to risk becoming him. But I lived, on my terms, with dignity he could never touch. And when people asked me where I learned resilience, I told them the truth. From someone who made me earn every scrap of peace. He taught me everything about what not to be, and that was enough.